Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. Backstory. I had a BFF that I suspected was not a good friend. I never really had actual reasons for suspecting that she wasn't. It was just solely an instinct, a gut feeling, if you will. Hindsight is 20/20, and I should have listened to my gut. Anyway, let's call this friend and her fiancé Cindy and Paul. I met Cindy in school approximately 5 years before the crap storm. We quickly became party friends. You know, the kind you only party with. She was fun, and always seemed to be looking for the next guy, regardless of her relationship status, which I found to be distasteful, but I mind my business, and I didn't consider us to be close friends. Eventually, we grew closer. She'd come over to my house and hang out at family gatherings. She always seemed to copy my fashion, makeup, gestures, and sometimes even hair color. She'd ask to wear my clothes or have me do her makeup similar to mine. I thought nothing of it, despite other friends telling me they found her weird, as she seemed to want to behave, look, and do as I did. I thought it was a bit odd at times, but didn't feel threatened or bothered by any of that. When Cindy and I met, she was married, and I was in a serious cohabiting relationship with a man I'll call Simon. Cindy cheated on her husband, with whom I later found out to be her cousin's husband, and she moved the stolen husband in. Probably the same day, I don't know. Despite having been friends for so long, I later learned she led an entirely different life that I had no idea about, and would never have allowed her close to my family if I knew about it. Anyway, the stolen husband relationship didn't last long, because they both cheated on each other. Meanwhile, Simon and I are living our best lives and going on 5 years strong. But suddenly things changed, for reasons unbeknownst to me, and we broke up. We weren't on bad terms, but we weren't on talking terms. It was more of an I'll avoid you, but I'll be civil if I see you. Fast forward a year and a half, and many men in Cindy's life later. I was in a relationship that quickly became serious. I wasn't surprised that our relationship was moving fast. After all, he was my first love, my high school sweetheart, whom I had broken up with because I went off to college. Side note, he and I have been happily married since, and have made a wonderful life together. He also supported me while I moved in the shadows, despite not agreeing with what I was doing. The call. Cindy was on the prowl for a new boo, and at a gathering, Cindy met one of my husband's friends, Paul. Of course, she sank her teeth into him immediately. Cindy moved at lightning speed with these guys, immediately moving them in and wedding planning even when she hadn't even been proposed to. Oh my God, her obsession with having a wedding was insane. Paul quickly finds himself engaged to Cindy, a couple of months into the relationship. Yes, a couple of months. Paul would openly and loudly say that he never asked, nor gave her a ring. Yes, she bought herself a ring and paying for the wedding. She asked me to be her maid of honor, and I accepted. 1 month into the dumpster fire wedding planning, Cindy begins to complain that Paul was working overtime and wasn't meeting her needs in the you-know-what department, because he was always tired. We went out a few times, and she left with random guys while I went home to the love of my life. Cindy lied to Paul, telling him she was with me or stayed over. She never stayed at my place. I'm too grown for slumber parties. We don't do that over here. No, ma'am. I found out she was using me to lie to Paul, so I confronted her about it and told her how my husband and I felt about knowing she's cheating on a guy we are friends with, and her wedding is 1 month away. She said she'd stop and make things right with Paul. Then, I get the call from my ex, Simon. He says he couldn't deal with the guilt anymore and needs to confess that he cheated on me with Cindy toward the end of our relationship. Said he needed to tell me not just out of guilt, but that he hated to see how I was still being lied to by Cindy. Wasn't a problem when he was lying to me, though. Simon was likely confessing to make his way back into my life by trying to get on my good graces. Hell no. Simon tells me Cindy and he started to text when we began to have issues. She would advise him to leave me because he deserved better. They met up at bars a couple of times and hooked up. They recently hooked up again. Cindy told him that she was getting married and I was the maid of honor. Simon told her to come clean if she planned on continuing to be my friend. They argued over it, and he warned her that he'd tell me everything if she didn't. The nitty-gritty. I contemplated whether I should move in the shadows or confront her about her cheating and betrayal. Let me be clear, although finding out I was betrayed not just by a partner, but also a close friend felt horrible, even though I had moved on. However, I was not angry or fighting over a man. I felt stupid, betrayed, fooled, and flat out disrespected by my so-called best friend who dared to make me her maid of honor after betraying me. At least Simon had the slight decency to exit my life after his betrayal. I was sure as hell pissed because where do you find the audacity? Like my friend Charlotte says, absolutely not. So I consulted a friend, who is now my best friend, and we agreed I should give Cindy a chance to confess on her own by hinting that I know about the cheating. After numerous hints, like me telling her Simon confessed he cheated with a friend while we were breaking up. How much more of a hint do you need? She instead decided to console me and tell me I should be glad I'm with someone way better now, and Simon is trash. That really pissed me off. I said duck the high road BS and decided to unleash the petty revenge committee located in the depths of my anger. The dinner party. I told Cindy I wanted to throw her and Paul a dinner with our closest friends, approximately 6 people, and it would be hosted at my now BFF's house. By the way, shout out to my BFF who moved in the shadows with me and restored my faith in true friendships. This dinner took place 2 weeks before the wedding. We sat everyone down, they ate, had some drinks. Then, I made my toast. I started by asking Cindy if she wanted to come clean now, or if she preferred I do it for her. The look on her face was priceless. She knew what I was talking about 1,000%. However, not only do I move in the shadows, but I also move with receipts. So I invited Simon to join us via FaceTime while I made the confession announcement on her behalf. She tried to interrupt me and speak over me, but my BFF stopped her, and I made sure I spoke loud, fast, and clear. My only real regret about it all was Paul learning of the multiple times Cindy cheated on him in front of everyone. I can only imagine the horror that might have been, but I knew if I told him separately, he would not have joined us that night. I later apologized to him. He forgave me, and also thanked me for letting him know, although he wished it would have been in private. He is now happily married and has a beautiful wife and kids. As for Cindy, she spent the following 2 weeks begging me to say that I lied about everything, so that Paul would go through with the wedding. Delusional much? Paul ghosted her, and she spent several weeks trying to find him by invading his mother's home unannounced. I have no idea what lies Cindy told Paul's mom, because she contacted my husband to warn him that I was the city's biggest S, and he should leave me. My husband only pissed her off by replying that he loved that about me, because he was one too. Just an FYI, this wedding was going to be a simple backyard wedding. There were no large deposits lost, other than the table and linen rental deposit. Paul's family was going to cook, I was going to do hair, makeup, and pre-wedding photos, and my BFF was bringing the DJ. Cindy bought herself an engagement ring and wedding dress, but lesson learned, I hope. Cindy and I never spoke again, and thankfully, we've never run into each other either. All of our friends, including her first husband, took my side, and we all remain friends. I never spoke to Simon again, despite his continuous attempts to contact me until he passed a couple of years ago. I did not attend his funeral out of respect for myself and my husband, but I did visit his grave months later to pay my respects and say a prayer for him. I always wondered, am I the a-hole for going about things this way? No matter what the interweb's verdict is, I have zero regrets. When you lie down with dogs, you wake up with fleas. OP was happy to party with this girl and overlook her cheating until she did it to OP. But OP has been tacitly allowing and approving of it for years before that. OP knew what she was. Very little sympathy for OP from my side. And now let's hear the community's opinion. Your husband's response to Paul's mom was gold. You're the a-hole. This is just gross. You had an opportunity to stop a lot of people from getting hurt more than they already would have been if you told them. All of her exes when you saw her cheat, as well as maybe warning your husband's friend that she's a serial cheater before he dated her, let alone get engaged. But you literally kept all of it a secret from everyone until she did something that affected you. Which, in comparison, isn't that bad as what she did to her partners, because you had already moved on and were happy when you found out, while other people were left with nothing, in regards to romance. Then you solely decided to handle it in a way to make you feel better, which hurt yet another person, as well as not taking into consideration your own husband's feelings on something that involves his friend too. You're not as bad as your ex-friend, but you only care about yourself, just like her. Honestly, I usually just lurk, but this honestly pissed me off, because you act like you're such a kind person, but a kind person would have warned people that want to be monogamous against someone who you know is not. Whether you want to be friends with her or not, you're both a-holes. Not the a-hole. Borderline everyone sucks here. But I feel this toast came from you taking your petty revenge when Simon confessed, rather than helping Paul not get married to someone who would never stop cheating. You and your husband knew about her cheating. You both could have pulled Paul aside and told him everything before making the toast. The rest should have been his choice, i.e. to stay or to not stay. I don't even know where to start. I am shaking right now and can't keep a straight thought. So sorry for all the spelling mistakes. My husband and I have been married for 10 years and together for over 15 years. I was 15, he was 20. I know it's weird, but we lived in a small town where that was not out of the norm. When my family moved in 2006, he decided to come with us so he wouldn't leave my side. I was so head over heels for him. We got married in 2009, and a few weeks ago, I found out I was pregnant. He was so happy, or so I thought. My husband and I have a very open phone policy. That means that I take his when mine is dead to watch videos, or he takes mine to text his buddies. So I never had any kind of doubt on him. He often goes to business trips and sends me pictures of the events, his room, etc. So again, there's no ground for distrust. And I knew all his work friends and trusted them. So that brings us to Sunday morning. I was doing some extensive chores, like spring cleaning. I was emptying every closet to rearrange it. When I came to his sock drawer, I found a phone that I didn't recognize. Didn't tick alarm bells as this was a nice Samsung phone and by no means a burner. I left it on top of his drawer and continued. So yesterday when I came back from the gym, no wild gym session, just some soft exercise, I dropped my phone in the toilet. I tried to salvage it by putting it in a bag of rice. So now I was out of a phone and had the brilliant idea to boot up the one I found in my husband's drawer to keep connected. I took out the SIM and charged the phone. Immediately as the lock screen showed, my heart dropped to my stomach. It was a picture of him and my sister on the Maldives. Same resort we went to on our honeymoon. I began going through everything, the gallery, the notes, and especially an app called Line. It's something like WhatsApp, but I think it works with an ID rather than a number. My husband's only contacts were my little sister and his best friend. The chat was ducking disgusting. They sent each other graphic pictures, said how much they loved each other. I was livid. I scrolled and scrolled and scrolled in the hope that this had only been going on for a few weeks. No, 2 years. 2 ducking years. The first message on this Line app was from a year ago, but it said, "Happy anniversary, baby. It has been the happiest year in my life. You are going to love our trip." I felt sick to my stomach. How dare he say it was the happiest year? I just broke down. Then I looked at the chats from him and his best friend. Apparently, all the photos he sent me of the conferences he was in came from his best friend to cover. Husband would take pictures of his room and his face. I didn't know what to do, so I called my mother sobbing and having a panic attack. My mother rushed to my apartment on the spot because she thought something did happen to the baby. Once she calmed me down, I could explain what had happened. At first, she didn't want to believe me, but I showed her everything, even the pictures in the gallery. My mother cried with me. She couldn't believe my sister had done this to me. She had dinner with me and we drove to our family home, where we told Dad. I don't know if that was the best, as Dad is pretty conservative, and for him, this was such a big sin that he could have disowned my sister. He called her and told her to come ASAP. Didn't tell her why, though. He was very silent and drank some whiskey. I was still crying with my mother, the phone on the table. My sister came in as if nothing. She came to where we were sitting and wanted to say something when she saw our faces. That bee really had the audacity to ask, "OMG, OP, what's wrong? Is it your baby?" I don't know what came over me, but I just stood up and slapped her as hard as I could. My dad had to restrain me. She started screaming, "What the duck is wrong with you?" And then all hell broke loose. My father started tearing her a new one, showing her the messages and videos and repeating, "You are a disgrace to this family. How could you?" She didn't say anything. She cried. My father threw the phone in her face, then took it between his finger, made her look at me and screamed, "Ducking, look at her. Tell her why you did it." She just cried more. I cried. My mom cried. Then she said the worst thing possible. "I couldn't help it. We fell in love." That's when I lost it. I told her she was dead to me and stormed out. My mom tried to call after me, but I just took off. I walked so long that I couldn't feel my feet anymore and stayed the night at a motel eating junk and crying. This morning, my mom came to pick me up. She sat me down and told me that my sister was pregnant and that she was going to keep the baby. I asked Mom if she had told her why she did it. Mom said that the only thing my sister said all night long was that she loved my husband and was going to keep the baby. I know I have to leave him, but what now? I don't ducking know what to do. My life is over. How do I confront him? Do I really cut my sister off my life? I don't know if I could ever look him in the face again. I don't know if I should keep my baby. I am just at a loss. Holy hell, I'm so sorry. First off, the only person you have any obligation to is your child. You owe nothing to your husband or your sister, so telling them both whatever your favorite insult is seems appropriate. Hopefully, you can either kick him out or move in with your parents. Whether or not any of these relationships are salvageable is your choice alone. But understand, salvaging either of them will take an extraordinary amount of time and effort, which you are under no obligation to give. Please find a good counselor. The relationship I would be most worried about is the one with your parents. They may be ready to disown her now, but parents have a much higher capacity for both brushing the bad aside as well as for genuine forgiveness of almost anyone. They may get stuck wanting to support you, but also wanting to have a relationship with your sister. If your husband and sister decide to pursue a relationship, your future life is going to get even more complicated. You have the right to make any decision you want regarding the bigger picture of family, but any decision will be made a tiny bit easier with the guidance of an excellent therapist. So, my cousin, I'll call her Lindsay, has been married for over 5 years to a wonderful man. His family is very religious. Ours is not. Lindsay was not raised in the church, but after discovering her dad wasn't her real father when she was 13, she started attending services as a way to find peace. I often drove her to and from school, church, activities, and she would often tell her friends at school that I was her mom, as her own mother put men and work ahead of her children. Because of this, I've always felt a close bond between us. That's why I chose to make her baby a handmade gift. I cross-stitched a quote about babies along with a cross onto a decorative cloth, then displayed it in a large shadow box I thought could be used as a memory keeper as the baby grew up. Several family members knew I was giving Lindsay a shadow box, but only one of them knew I was cross-stitching something for it, my mother. Lindsay's shower was a 4-hour drop-by on a day I had a funeral to attend, so I went early and dropped off my gift, said hello, and left after an hour or so to make the funeral. I wasn't in attendance when Lindsay opened gifts. There were plenty of pictures posted to Facebook that evening, including some of her opening my gift. It's apparent she really loved the gift because she was crying. It made me really happy to know she cared so much for it, and that was about it. That was 4 months ago, and Lindsay's daughter was born just over a month ago. We live in different states, so it took me until yesterday to be able to visit. Lindsay was nice enough, but her in-laws were very cold towards me. I shrugged it off and focused on the baby and how Lindsay was doing. I figured Lindsay's lack of being her regular self was attributed to having a newborn. When I went into the nursery, the memory keeper I had given Lindsay was just to the side of the crib, in full display. I made a comment like, "I'm so glad you liked the gift," to which she responded, "It's probably the best gift we've received, definitely the most sentimental." Then, Lindsay's mother-in-law said, "Yes, my mother made that herself, for her first great-grandchild." I'm sure the look on my face was one of utter confusion, but I was so taken aback that I didn't think before saying, "No, I made that." Mother-in-law started arguing with me, and I eventually asked Lindsay when she received the gift. as clearly she could straighten the issue out. Lindsay sheepishly replied she wasn't sure, and mother-in-law got a smug look on her face. The baby was going down for a nap, so I excused myself and left the room. I gathered my things and thanked them all for their hospitality before leaving. I'm just in shock over this, and I'm not sure if it's a red flag. Lindsay is not likely to forget receiving the gift. Plus, there are pictures on Facebook where she opened the gift at her shower in her hometown, not the shower her in-laws threw her in their town. I thought it was odd I never received a thank you note for the gift, especially when Lindsay so clearly loved it. I asked my mother about it, and she told me that I might be mistaken, and it was a different shadow box. I feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone. I know Lindsay just had a baby, and we've not been as close since she went to college, married, and moved away. But she has been herself every time I've seen her up until this previous time. This is also the first time I've been around her when she was surrounded by in-laws on their turf, as previous interactions with them were at the wedding and at my aunt's home. Am I overthinking this or what? I'm going to say this here and then get to at least some of the comments to respond directly. Yes, Lindsay lives at her in-laws. I see now that it was an important thing I should have added to the OP. No, I did not sign my work or the shadow box, simply because I wanted Lindsay to be able to designate how my gift was used. She could easily have used the shadow box to display something not related to baby. Yes, I did include a card with the gift. It was taped to the package, under the bow. The pictures on Facebook show the bow still intact as Lindsay begins opening gifts, so I don't think it was tampered with. No, Lindsay's mother-in-law was not at the shower where she received the gift, so there's no way she originally passed the gift off as her own. No, the mother-in-law is not so old that she would have memory problems. She's not even 50 yet, which she could have memory problems, but that doesn't seem likely. Addressing the grandmother-in-law. I met grandmother-in-law at the wedding, almost 6 years ago. She was wheelchair-bound then and living in a nursing home. As far as I can tell, she isn't even able to cross-stitch, even if she did in the past. Addressing the family dynamic. Lindsay and my aunt, her mom, had a rough few years, but they've been able to move on and are genuinely close now. It's still possible that Lindsay clung to her mother-in-law initially to replace my aunt. I might have some pictures I can find, but honestly, this isn't about being right. I don't really care about that. I'm more confused on how Lindsay is being treated. And since I've never had kids, I'm not sure if she's hazy or if she's in a bad situation. His family is rewriting history. It's disturbing. They want baby to see it as something sentimental from them, not from you. Email her directly and ask, "Hey, Elle, I feel strange even bringing this up, but the conversation about the shadow box with your mother-in-law really weirded me out. I mean, I made that box. I remember doing it and everything. Is everything okay?" Update. Today I contacted Lindsay's sister. Sister told me that Lindsay's best friend was in charge of the gift list and that she knew a copy had been made, in case Lindsay lost it transporting the gifts from her hometown to where she lives. Sister was kind enough to get in touch with best friend. Best friend told sister that she still has the copy of the gift list and that my name was on it and the gift was listed as shadow box with cross-stitching. Best friend also mentioned that Lindsay has been acting strangely since around the time of her pregnancy, but best friend chalked it up to that. Sister said she had same feelings, but that Lindsay seemed fine when they visited in person. So sister assumed it was being tired, ill from pregnancy. It's important to note that they were only around one another when Lindsay came to hometown to visit. So finally, with my bit of proof, I texted Lindsay to show her how much I enjoyed meeting the baby and getting to visit with her. I asked her if everything was okay, as she didn't seem herself. But I didn't want to make her any more uncomfortable than she was when the misunderstanding about my gift came up. She took a couple of hours to respond, but when she did, I learned a lot of unsettling info. First, Lindsay knows I made the gift. Second, Lindsay and her husband both contributed to a handwritten letter to thank me for the gift. Third, mother-in-law destroyed the letter. Fourth, grandmother-in-law did not make a gift or buy a gift or give a gift. Grandmother-in-law is in her 80s and has had a series of health issues that have essentially put her in a vegetative state. The rundown is this. Grandmother-in-law has been bad off for years, but about a year ago, She suffered from a health issue that essentially caused her to be bedridden. She cannot feed herself, dress herself, speak coherently, or walk. This has torn mother-in-law apart, as she is the youngest child and has depended on her mother for everything. About this same time, mother-in-law began acting off. It was small things like Lindsay making dinner and mother-in-law claiming Lindsay used an old family recipe when Lindsay had used a recipe from Pinterest, Facebook, of her own making. When corrected, mother-in-law would fly off the handle and scream, cry, throw things. Lindsay and her husband made plans to move out, as they were living with the in-laws to save money to buy their home, while Lindsay was going to school for a second degree and not working. Shortly before they were going to make the move, Lindsay discovered she was pregnant. They chose to stay because they knew how tight money would be if they tried to move out and have a baby on one salary. Things with mother-in-law escalated after Lindsay announced the pregnancy. Mother-in-law was always around. She never gave them any privacy. She also would say negative things to Lindsay about my aunt, Lindsay's mom, and make statements such as, "We don't want to have that baby taken away, now do we?" Lindsay said they weren't direct threats, more like comments after making suggestions on parenting. Lindsay's father-in-law refuses to seek therapy for his wife, despite Lindsay's husband suggesting they have her seen. He's an only child, so there's not really much of a family to back him up. Lindsay and her husband have been able to save a lot of money thanks to their church. They not only had members give them a ton of baby gifts at the shower her in-laws threw, but the church is also offering free childcare because Lindsay volunteered there part-time while she was attending school. It's put them in a position where they are going to be able to move out in the next few months. Thank you again for all of your comments. I wasn't sure if my own feelings were clouding my judgment, but it seems most of the comments on the first post saw something off as well. Lindsay is doing everything she can to keep the peace, and I think that's best considering the situation.